Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Meet the Mentor with Jessica Oliveras today, where she is going to be doing a live demonstration on how to mix colors for many different skin tones. And she is a master at color mixing. So this is going to be wonderful. My name is Lynn Mazzara. I'm going to be your host for this event. And I am a mixed media artist who's been with Mastrius as a navigator and a member for the past 3 years. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with Mastrius, it is an online platform that connects creatives to mentors who can help support you on your artistic journey. And I personally particularly love that the Mastrius non-competitive platform fosters collaboration, growth, and community. Now, before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. Just so you know, this event is being recorded and will be put up on the Mastrius YouTube channel. So feel free to leave your camera on or turn it off as you feel comfortable. And we welcome your questions, your comments. Jessica wants this to be interactive. Although we do ask that once we start, you turn your microphones off and only turn them on when you're ready to ask a question. And if you feel more comfortable, you can type your question in the chat and I will read it for you. I think that's everything about housekeeping. So let me start by introducing you to Jessica Oliveras. Jessica was born in a small town near Barcelona, Spain, and was educated at the University of Girona in Spain and at the Middlesex University in London in nursing and midwifery. Jessica started to paint professionally in London, where she lived for 8 years, but she is mostly self-taught in painting. Her father is an artist and painter, and her mother is an art book director. So she grew up surrounded by paintings and in the company of artists and art collectors. Her love of art started at an early age when her father's paintings became both a reference and a source of artistic inspiration for her. Now, I'm just going to share my screen before I continue, and I'm not on the right. There we go. Can everyone see her work? Jessica paints photorealistic figures in oil. Many are women she met as a midwife. She paints these figures on abstracted backgrounds because by juxtaposing the chaotic backgrounds with the more defined figures, she seeks to convey the blurred boundaries between the past and the present, and existence and non-existence. Jessica writes, these elements serve as a visual representation of emotional turmoil and inner chaos that accompanies my journey of disengagement. Her work has been shown in exhibits and galleries both in Europe and North America, and she currently has had her painting juried into the Mod Portrait exhibition at the Meme Museum, which translates into the European Modern Art Museum in Barcelona. Jessica has recently moved back to Spain, searching to reconnect with her roots. She currently works and resides between Spain and Italy, having working studios in both Barcelona and Naples. So I just want to share that for the past 14 months, I am fortunate to be mentored by this wonderful artist. Although I am a mixed media artist painting mostly in acrylics, portraying my version of the abstracted female face, I have learned so much from her and my paintings have noticeably improved. This is because Jessica prioritizes the individual needs and requests of our group, shaping each session around what excites and challenges us the most. We have explored composition, color and color mixing, value, chroma, and edges, just to touch on a few of our sessions. Also, critiques are a big part of our sessions where you can expect honest feedback tempered with encouragement and valuable tips on where you can improve your paintings. All this as we celebrate our growth as artists. And I have to add, as a successful artist working full-time to support herself, Jessica's knowledge of the business of being an artist has been invaluable, and I have implemented many of her suggestions, and my business has grown because of them. Thank you, Jessica, for being here today. I am really excited to be able to host this event, but also to share with the world how wonderful you are and watch you paint, do color mixing for skin tones. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's beautiful. And I appreciate that you express that this is your experience. And I feel fortunate to have worked with you since I started with Mastrius. So thank you. I appreciate it. I don't think I have much to add to the introduction of Lean. Probably the couple of things I would like to highlight here is that despite my portfolio is clearly figurative and I do a lot of details on the figure, we're focusing very much on the theory, techniques, tricks that can be applied to all sorts of painting styles. So we have Lynn as a mixed media artist, abstraction within the figuration. We have Agnieszka that as well is working with realism, much more impressionist. They do acrylic oil. So we have like a diverse range of portfolios without our group. And what is important is that the information and the session that I prepared for the group, they are kind of like a broad spectrum of all aspects of painting, independently of your style or the media that you choose. And in fact, I was just showing Lynn that myself, I started working on just abstract. So I've got behind my first ever abstract painting. So I hope that it shows that we're very like open-minded to all the styles, and we have kind of like a mindset that works within the figuration with kind of like has much more strict rules, but as well with the abstractions and other things like composition, edges, things that they're very useful as pillars to any kind of work that you are doing yourselves already. And I hope that this point is clear. With Lynn, we're saying like, I think this is important that it's clear because we don't want to think that people, they don't get to us thinking that, oh, they are too figurative, they are too hyper-realistic. We really tailor each session to the needs of the group. So when Lynn meets with the rest of the groups, there are the requests to the next topic, things that they would like us to cover, and this is what I prepare for the following session. And in case that there are no requests, then I do my own kind of like a guide of the membership program. So I think like this is more or less who I am, what I do, and how I like to do the sessions. I normally start with a topic that we call it more theory, but can include concepts like composition, tools, marketing, online portfolio, websites, even like self-critique of the work before, or critique from myself of the work that has been shared from the group members. And then we move to a demo. In each session, there is a demo. Normally, it's related to the theory before. I think the last one was about drawing. So like basic concepts of drawing, how we can draw the human figure in a much more fluent way, understanding the structure, etc. And then the demo was related on that, for example. Or if we talk about how we can control chroma on our color mixing, we can talk about this in the first part of the session as a theory. Then we can screen share some photos and analyze different paintings. And then we move to the demo and do the color mixing together with all the names of the colors and different ways that we can control chroma on our painting. Once we finish the session, normally the homework is very much related to the thing we've done. And I always share more details. For example, all the names of the colors, if we do color mixing, or photos of the demo or the sketch I've done. So kind of like you have like the material on the group chat that you can download, and it helps us kind of like your own like guide to check if you ever have questions about the topics that we cover during the sessions. I prepared for today, just for you guys to have a glimpse of what we do, a short demo on color mixing in relation to skin tones. This obviously is directly related to artists that they work with figure, but we always can learn a lot from understanding how one color reacts to the other and how we can find a million ways to react to the same color and apply these on our backgrounds, apply these on our abstract paintings, or whatever mixed media that we're working on. It's, I think, like very important that we have a strong fundamentals of color mixing, because once we are the one that we are dominant on the colors, not the colors that dominate us, then the limits are must like endless, because the combinations that we can achieve, we can get more and more risky, more and more like brave in trying new things. And all of this comes if we feel that we have like a solid structure on color theory and color mixing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lina, I don't know if you want now to spotlight my camera.
Absolutely. Are you ready to start?
I think we are.
Okay.
There is like a particular question about what I do with the group. We can do the demo. If you have any questions about any color, or you would like me to try other color mix, please interrupt me. I love being interrupted because this can be like very dynamic. If you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I'll carry on with the demo, and then towards the end, we can have a little bit more of like a protected time for questions and answers.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to spotlight the palette right now.
Right.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
And for everyone, Jessica's going to run through the colors on the palette, and I will copy those into the chat if you wanted to print them off, what colors she's using.
Perfect. The audio is good, no, still, despite we're spotlighting the other camera.
Is the audio still good for everybody? Can you hear Jessica fine? Yes. Okay. Yes, it is, Jessica.
Fantastic. So I put like a certain range of colors. There are mainly earthy colors, a little bit of like green, purple, and blues to have our cool down neutral tones. And then cadmiums, oranges, vermilions, and all the warm yellows to give like the nice kick on our skin tones. Then we're going to more or less do one example of different skin tones. There are really like dozens of different varieties, depending on the person, the reference that we've got. But just to start, it's important to have like a basic concept of where we can start from when we have a person with different ethnicity or color skin. On the first group, I'm going to do a kind of like easy color mix for fair skin. So it could be Caucasian, European, North America, etc. Then the second group, we're going to focus in a much more like Mediterranean olive skin tones. Like we can find it in Arabs, even Spanish, Greeks, etc., Middle East. Then we're going to move into like brown skin tones. brown as like people that they have like kind of like a dark skin, but without going too dark. That could work, I guess, for like certain islands of the Caribbean, etc. And then we go for like the most darker tones, like black skin on our latest group. And then I'm going to move the color mix on the canvas, so you will be able to differentiate the different shapes and all the different varieties that we can take from there. As well, I will explain which colors we can use in each group to kind of like neutralize a little bit the chroma. So we're going to do in each section, the basic mix, different variations, and then the neutral tones that we can add to cool down or to reduce the chroma.
Exciting.
So we're going to start by this more like fair skin. Oh, before we start, actually, Nadine, you asked me to go through the colors.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I almost forgot. So we're going to start from the more, from like light to dark. We have titanium white, Naples yellow, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium yellow deep, cadmium orange, vermilion, yellow ochre, primary magenta, scarlet lake, alizarin crimson, violet, cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue, viridian green, terra verde, Venetian red, burnt sienna, burnt amber, and ivory black. It's more or less all the colors that we're going to use for this mix. And then on the first group, I am going to use as my basic mix, titanium white, vermilion, and yellow ochre. Now, once we are comfortable with the colors we're using, we know more or less how much of each color we need to use. For example, vermilion is a color that has a very strong tinting power. So it's good to start just with a little touch, and then we add more as we need, because otherwise, very quickly, it takes over the whole mix. So I took white as my baseline, and then I'm adding the yellow ochre and a little bit of a touch of the vermilion. Like this, what I am getting is kind of like, I guess, what has been like normalized as the most common like a skin tone when you say like, oh, just a regular skin tone. Mm-hmm. If you're not a painter and you're from Caucasian background, European, North America, Canada, you might think about this color as the more like regular one. And we can get it very easily with only these three colors: white, yellow ochre, vermilion. So very simplistic. We can get skin tones straight away. Now, what happens if we want to give a little bit more of like a sparkle on our mix? We can choose which way we want to move. Do we want a skin tone that is more for the cheeks of the person, so might have a little bit of like a pinky touch? We can try, in this case, a little bit of primary magenta. And you can see that with a little bit of primary magenta, we are already obtaining a much more pinkier color skin. So we already have a variation, which is beautiful for certain areas, like the cheeks or around the nose, maybe on the lips. Even if we do flowers or other still lifes, we can get this kind of like pastel pink colors working with the same base as skin tones. Now, what if we have a model that is under direct sunlight and we want a little bit much more of like a nice kick of yellow? Maybe we can take a little bit of lemon yellow, because lemon yellow it's a little bit brighter than just a cadmium medium yellow. So what it does is warms our mix, but at the same time gives a lot of brightness because it's a very bright color itself. So we kind of like use this color very strategically to get towards our brightest parts of the skin or towards the highlights, because it's warm and it's bright. So it's kind of like the perfect color to move from areas that they are slowly moving into the more like brightened parts of our skin, or closer, or parts of the skin that is closer to our light source. Now, imagine that we really want like something very powerful, maybe under the cheek, before the jawline starts. What about if we try with some orange? Just cadmium orange. And straight away, we have like a much more chromatic orangey tone. The more orange we add, the more magenta we add, or the more like yellow we add, obviously we're going to have a color mix that is much more inclined towards this color and much more chromatic. So in case that we feel that we have overworked on the chroma, that we have a too chromatic color, there are many ways that we can push it a little bit lower. Kind of like bring the chroma down and work on a much more neutral color mix. If this is the case, kind of like the quickest solution would be adding a little bit of white to our mix. If I feel that this mix is too orangey, I come with my whites and I have a less chromatic mix by just adding a tinge of white. Now, this solution might not work for all the situations, because if we have an excess of whites, might feel like the color is very dusty. It loses sometimes even like the brightness or the shine, the interest of the pigment, because we overwork with the whites. So it's good that we can use it as a quick move back to a lower chroma, or maybe to push the value a little bit upper. But if we overwork only with white, we might fail, especially with the skins, that it will look like too artificial, too whitish, like almost like it will be like flower kind of thing on top of the skin. So what other options we have then to produce this chroma? One will be very straightforward. We do our neutral gray, gray number 5, which is the most neutral color that we have on our scale, by adding whites with ivory black. I do a regular gray. The more whites I add, the more bright the gray, therefore higher the value, closer to the light. If I feel that by mixing white and ivory black, it's too cold, directly on this mix, I can add a touch of burn umber.
Oh, that warmed it right up.
Yes. And in color skin, we know that unless the person is under a very cool light, we need yellow in it. All skins have yellow. So burn umber has a little bit of yellow. And so if we feel that this gray is too cold, touch of burn umber. If the person is under a very cool light, or we're painting a flower or other things, then we can keep it just with the two colors. Otherwise, a little bit of brown.
Jessica, now, is it possible for you to just give us the color paint on the paper so we can see the skin tone?
Yeah.
It's slightly different on your palette, I think, than when you paint it.
Yeah. So this, can you see?
Yes. May need to make it a little bigger.
Right. Let me make some color. And actually, like after the session, I can send you the picture. I don't know if we can publish it somewhere.
Okay.
So,
yes, it's much more flesh toned on the white than it looks on the palette.
Perfect. Thank you for reminding me, Lynn, because I had the paper prepared, but I was not transferring the colors. So this is kind of like the basic one, right? That we did initially. Now, if we wanted to do a brighter tone or to reduce the chroma, we can just add a little bit of white, and automatically we have a higher value, so the skin closer to the light, and a little bit of a reduced chroma. If we want, as before, a small variation of like a pinky tone, we can add a little bit of primary magenta, and automatically we have a much more pinkier version of the skin tone. The same as we work with the lemon yellow. And the same example that we did with the cadmium orange. And then each of these variations, we can brighten them up by just adding a little bit of white on it. Again, on the orange, for example, that is more clear, with some white, we reduce this chroma at the same time that we increase the value. And now we have like a kind of like harmonious palette here. And we have it harmonious because all the color variations are coming from the same baseline. So a baseline of 3 colors, vermilion, white, and yellow ochre baseline. Variations of different colors on top. Like this, we make sure that the colors that we paint our portrait have unity, have color harmony. They're all under the same lights because I follow a structure when I do the color mixing. I start from the same base and I build on top. So it's very clear that just with like a couple of like mixes, we already have like a beautiful color palette here. Now going back to our gray, let's do a situation here where we have a much more chromatic mix of the same base of yellow ochre and vermilion. Imagine that we have this, and we love the tone, but we feel that it's too powerful, that it's too chromatic, and it's too strong if we compare it to the rest of the colors that we have here. We can add some white, but we have the alternative of adding a neutral gray. If we add a neutral gray, what we do is that we are keeping the pigments, so we can still see this kind of like terracotta mix, but in a much less chromatic way. Now we have a darker tone, but less chromatic. Compared to this one that is kind of like a kick in the eyes in comparison of the previous one. So this, it's kind of like standing out a lot. If I put this color on top of the previous harmonious color schemes, it will stand out so much that you might feel that it's from another painting. But if I reduce the chroma by adding a neutral gray, automatically I harmonize and bring unity to the same color palette despite I have a much darker tone. And the reason behind, again, is because the basic colors to achieve this color has always been the same ones, yellow ochre and vermilion.
Okay, Jessica, we're at half an hour already. I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. So, now, what happens if we have a skin tone here that is much more Mediterranean, has a tinge of green, the Mediterranean? We can easily get that by doing a simple mix of yellow ochre with a little bit of white. Then we add burnt sienna and a little bit of terra verde. I don't know if everybody is familiar with terra verde, but basically it's a green that is very warm. It will be very like similar to an olive green, but darker. So it has a lot of brown in it. It's very warm. And it works super well to cool down as a neutralizer, to bring down chromas, to bring the neutral colors on our skin, and beautiful baseline for Mediterranean and Arabic skins. If we feel that it's too dark, we can add a little bit of white. And I'm going to transpose this onto the paper so we can see what is the difference between this one and the other. What we have here is still a skin tone, much darker. It's still warm because I added yellow ochre, burnt sienna that has yellow, and the green that is warm, that has yellow in it. But we can really see the tinge of green. If we compare to the previous one that there is no green, we can see here that it's still greenish. Now, if we want to make like a brighter tone, easily done with adding a little bit more of titanium white. And we already have a much clearer tone within the same color palette, because I only change the quantity of the same four colors. Instead of putting more of the pigment, yellow ochre, terra verde, or burnt sienna, I put more of the white. So it's exactly the same color, the same scale, but closer to the light. So higher the value because I added more white. Now let's make another beautiful variation here. What about if we wanted to make a little bit more like reddish? Because we're moving maybe towards the end of the face, towards where the hair starts. If this is the case, we can add a little bit more of burnt sienna to the same mix. And we are already obtaining a much more reddish tone, which is probably more similar to this one, but more red. And what will happen if we want to be now very cold in comparison of the previous ones? We add more of the terra verde. So we kind of like pull down much more our baseline. Now, this color palette is completely different to the previous one. This looks more much of like a person from Middle East or Northern Africa, Mediterranean, but still with unity, still with harmony, still with our chroma in control. And now imagine that from each of these four mixes, we can do endless more by playing with more white, with more yellow, with more orange. Here we can play with more green. We can play with a little bit of blue. So each one has then endless variation that we can continue discovering.
Jessica, what color would you add to create a darker shadow? Would it be the blue?
So if I want, for example, to stick to these four colors, I could just use more quantity of the pigmented ones.
Oh, I see. Okay.
This could be like the most straightforward. But if we really have a strong shadow, because maybe there is an object making a shadow, we can play with the rests. If we add a little bit of blue, we obtain a more or less similar like tone, but a little bit more cooler. This looks a little bit more gray because the blue neutralizes all my previous colors, all the warmth from the burnt sienna and the yellow ochre. We can try as well with some burnt umber, that is a darker version of the burnt sienna. And this combined with the previous blue, it makes it already more dark. And now if we feel that this is far too blue, we can add a little bit more of terra verde with the burnt umber. And we have a dark variation, but with greens.
Okay.
Without moving too much of our basic color mix. We don't have to go that complex, that complicated. Just always going back to our basic mix. We have endless variations that we can move from the brightest part of the skin closer to the light source to the most like dark shadows, perhaps under the jaw or on the corner of the eyes. If you want to work with a much more restricted, limited palette, then you can stick to this. Otherwise, you can explore with other colors available on your palette. Now, let's move into these like brown skin tones. Here we have to be a little bit more careful with the amount of whites we're going to use. Because a dark skin that has too much white can look like we put a layer of flour on top. So I would stick first with a mix of burnt sienna and burnt umber, and slowly adding the white on top. And like this, I have already a strong and dark mix for this like brown color. Now, if I want to increase the darkness, I can put more quantity of the browns, and I automatically will have a much darker tone. Now, what happens if we feel that this is darker, but it's too chromatic? What about if we take a little bit of our neutral gray, the one that we used before, and we add it to the mix? We reduce the chroma. Now, what happens is that if we reduce the chroma, sometimes we reduce as well. I mean, we lighten up the color again, no? We might feel that this is too similar. So what we can do is darken our gray. We go back to our gray. We put a little bit more of ivory black. Because ivory black cools down a lot and I want a little bit of warmth, I put a little bit of burnt umber. So I have a warmer gray. And now with this gray that is darker, I mix it with burnt umber and burnt sienna. I automatically have a darker tone, but less chromatic. This one is less red compared to the previous one, has less chromas, less powerful, but still is dark. Because there is not much more you can darken with burnt sienna and burnt umber. There is the maximum dark, but it will be the same dark as the burnt umber. But it still is very chromatic to put it directly on a skin tone. So if this is too much, but we want it dark, we have the option of darken our gray. Still, we have many other options here. What about if we add a little bit of cobalt blue? Cobalt blue, it's a beautiful color to add in this one because it maintains the dark value, it maintains the shadowy, it brings unity to the skin, but it neutralizes the tone, it cools down the skin. It could be like a great source for our neutral skin tones. If we feel that this is too dark, maybe here we can just add a little bit of whites. Nothing too complicated.
What if you wanted to warm it up?
If we want to warm it up, we have a kind of like an easy solution here, because burnt sienna has red and yellow. So if we warm it up, we might want to push the yellow a little bit stronger. If we go for a cadmium, it might be a little bit too strong, too pigmented, too bright. But which alternative we've got before the cadmiums? The yellow ochre. We put a little bit of yellow ochre. And automatically we have a warmer tone. The more yellow ochre we add, the warmer the tone. If it's too dark, we can add a little bit of white. We can really push the whites for like a highlight much brighter.
Oh, there it is. Would you ever add Naples yellow, or is it too chromatic?
So because I'm working in a kind of like a dark scale here, Naples yellow, we might need to add a lot of quantity because it doesn't have a very strong pigmentation power, but it's a very valid option. So it's valid. It's just that probably we need something that has a little bit more of a structure that can hold the dark paint a little bit more. But it could be fantastic alternative once we already have a brighter color, then adding Naples yellow on top. Because Naples yellow has enough tinting power for this value. Maybe not for the darker ones, but for this definitely yes.
Okay. Oh, there. Okay.
And what about if we really want to do a nice highlight on this one? So let's push the white and the Naples yellow. So the difference in value between this one and this one, for example, is quite high. The difference is wide. But see, look at the color harmony. All the colors, they work beautiful together. There is no single color that kind of like stands out that it doesn't belong in there. So we can still achieve the 3D effect and the volume that we want on our figure because the value is different, because there is a high spectrum, like a high difference in value, despite the unity and the harmony of the color palettes. And the last bit, it will be our proper like dark tones for like maybe like people from some African countries, etc. And I prepared burnt sienna, burnt amber, French ultramarine blue, and violet. So I'm going to do first a mix of the two browns, the burnt sienna and the burnt amber. I'm going to add a little bit of the French ultramarine blue because burnt amber and French ultramarine blue combined together makes it black. So if I have a base of burnt amber and I add French ultramarine blue on top, I automatically darken a lot my mix. But what about if I play a little bit with the purple? It gives like a very nice and exotic touch on this skin. Let's try it out. I have dark, but I have a very rich dark. I can see traces of purple in there. Then let's do a small variation just with a little bit of white. When we increase the value, when we bring this skin closer to the light, what do we see? We see this color. This color, it's kind of like neutral, despite I'm coming from all of these like dark colors. The reason behind is because I have kind of black on the baseline. I have burnt amber, French ultramarine blue that makes it black. So I have a very dark baseline with black on it. So as soon as I put white, I obtain gray. So that's why I have like a low chroma here because one of the whites and two because I had black before, so black and white makes it gray. Now, imagine that we want to go with like a variation that is much more vivid in color. Let's go for some cobalt blue here. Cobalt blue and violet with my burn number. I have a very rich blue-gray here, which works very good on shadows and pull downs my tones with the violets. If I add a little bit of whites, I will see that I'm almost gray, but still full of richness because of my baseline of cobalt blue. If we want to move towards darker tones, but still like earthy, we can just push the burn number a little bit more. On my previous mix, I do a little bit of burn number, a little bit more whites. And this could be like a nice colors towards highlights, towards the brightest parts of the skin. If this feels too earthy and I want to add maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson, because I want to add a little bit of pinkish, I can, because alizarin crimson as well is dark. So it adds the pinky, it adds the reddish without going too far from my palette.
So that alizarin crimson would also warm it up a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think like it's warm because we have the browns with the yellow in the brown, because this alizarin crimson, look, if I only add whites, it's not very warm. It's just very red and cold. So the reason why it feels warm here is because the baseline was with earthy colors, with burn amber and burn sienna. So then if I add the alizarin crimson on top, which gives me this pink reddish touch, it's on top of the yellow. For example, if you would work with, let's say, a flower or much more fair skin, you could take the alizarin crimson with a little bit of white and maybe add the yellow ochre on it. Like this, automatically you have a warmer version. Or for example, if you want to warm up a little bit more the skin with a lighter color, you add more white, a touch of the yellow ochre, and you have already a much brighter color. It's pinky or reddish, but maintains the warmth because the previous earthy colors of burn sienna and burn amber, and the yellow ochre that we put on top. So this is more or less different skin tones for these different ethnicities. As a recap, we have like this Caucasian variation with a simple mix of vermilion, yellow ochre, and whites. Then we have the Mediterranean variations that we can push it brighter or darker in relation to the model, but more or less will go around olive color, terra verde, tinges of green, with warmth coming from burnt sienna and yellow ochre, and obviously the whites. Then we have kind of like medium brown, where we start to get our darker skins by working as a baseline with my earthy colors, burnt sienna, burnt amber, and whites. And then on top, we can add more whites, we can add yellow ochre, we can even like push a little bit the vermilion and the orange in it. And we have a much more like pigmented and warm tone. So we can really push towards the direction that we want, but coming from a baseline of burnt sienna, burnt umber, and whites. And then finally, we have like our darker tones that we can push these colors darker or whiter, but more or less moving between purples, cobalt blues, viridians, alizarin crimsons, with a baseline of earthy colors. So we started with burnt sienna, burnt umber, and then the French ultramarine blue, the violets, and then we added the other colors as extra.
Okay.
Any questions about any particular color mix?
Yeah, you guys can turn on your microphones if you like. Mindy, anything?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the vermilion, because I work in acrylics, what color red would you choose then?
So there is the closest it would be the cadmium red light.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's red, but with a tinge of orange. And
okay.
Let me show you how very easily we can get this color. I take a Scarlet Lake, which is like this kind of like regular red, and then I put orange. And this is how I obtain my vermilion. So even if you don't have, can you see that it's the same?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So if you don't have the tube, or you feel that it's the cadmium red light is too far away, get a Scarlet Lake and orange, and you will be able to obtain this vermilion.
Scarlet Lake in acrylic is, I think it's Cad Red Deep.
Oh, I have all of those Cad Reds. It was just, and I know sometimes you can get it pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And the reason why we use, or I have the tendency to use more vermilion, is because you could perfectly have the same mixes, but with reds, with a Scarlet Lake or any other reds. Mm-hmm. But if we get a little bit of tinge of orange in it, realistically, what we are adding is yellow. So we're warming our mix. And because our skins have yellow, it makes more sense to take a red that has yellow in it. But that's the only reason.
Yeah.
I have one question about the really dark skin tones. Of course, I'm Caucasian, so I can paint the fair skin tones pretty simply. But when I go into black, I really struggle. Would you use more purple in the shadows to get that? I'm trying to achieve a dark look without it being so flat and ashy. So would purple be a good color to add?
Yeah. And even if you want to, because for camera purposes, if I push this value lower, it will become too dark. You might not see the different tones. But if you really want to keep the shadows, use ivory black. Okay. Ivory black, burnt umber, and purple. It's just like you can't go darker than this. Okay. You might not want to apply this completely straight unless you have a really, really deep shadow. But from there, you can lighten it up a little bit. You see, you already have like a brighter version of a very dark tone. Put it here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jessica.
You can push it quite a lot. And if you feel that then the purple, it's too strong, that you are losing the earthy color, add a little bit more burnt umber, or even a little bit of burnt sienna, just to give this nice warmth on the shadow. So it really depends on your reference. If you really want to go very dark, take it some ivory black on it, because very quick you will go dark. If it's too much, add a little bit of whites. If it's too cold because of the purple, add a little bit of burnt umber or burnt cinnamon.
Okay.
That's great.
I just want to say thank you, Jessica, and I think it's like wonderful what you're doing with these paints. It's just magic. Thank you for sharing.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.
I hope that you were able to take some good tricks here.
Very helpful.
Yes, very helpful. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us. And like I said, if you want to watch it again in a couple of weeks, it will be up on the YouTube channel. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Jessica has a mentorship the fourth Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. in Europe, 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Central, and noon Eastern time. And you can find her at mastrius.com for more information.
Great.
Everybody is welcome to join our group. Is there any final question before we close our...
No, that was wonderful.
That was great. Thank you everyone for being here. And thank you again, Jessica. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of...
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.